Hey guys, there's a rule in conversion optimization that the biggest lifts that you can get happen closest to the money. And the cart page is just about as close to the money as you can get. So we typically find that there's a lot of potential in optimizing the cart page and making it function better. So that's what we're going to look at in this video. I'm going to make a series of videos concerning this. So page by page, we're going to go and look into how to optimize e-commerce stores. So if you haven't already, subscribe for that, because we're going to really crush it with this series. And let's jump into this one. So first, let's cover why it is so vital to optimize the cart page and why we often prioritize it over other pages. There's a couple of good reasons for this. So the cart page is the page where sort of the final decision is made. So you have this sort of squeeze there, where you have just come from the product page, and now you have this big checkout or proceed to checkout button, which is often a little bit intimidating. So here is the final confirmation of these are the products that I want before I will start inputting my details onto the next step. It is also your last great opportunity to explain to the visitors why they should buy from here, what are the possible objections that they could have, and dealing with those. So there, you have a lot more leeway in the cart page compared to the checkout. Because on checkout, you want to be very standard. You want to have the fields and not much else in terms of distractions, because then all this extra information can also produce objections. So the cart page does serve a very specific purpose. There's actually three purposes that the cart page serves. First of all, it's a collection of products. So here, the user can go and check their collection again. Like for example, in a clothing store, typically people throw a bunch of things on the cart, and then on the cart they make the final decision. Then secondly, it's a confirmation of what they're going to buy. So there, you go from the product page to the cart page, and then you do have this view of what are the items that are already selected on the cart. So here you have that purpose. And thirdly, and this is something that most people miss, is an entry back to your store. So you come from emails, for example, and abandoned cart emails, which is a very common thing. Often you'd come to the cart, and there you have a sort of a landing page for that, the special scenario where people come through emails to the cart. So with this in mind, let's jump into the cart page. I'm going to show you some practical examples of good and bad, or adherence and non-adherence, as we like to call it. So, see you there. And here we are. So let's take a look at the 4 different shopping carts. I'm going to show you a couple of not so great examples and a couple of good examples of shopping carts. Now, most of the shopping cart pages are pretty basic, and that's generally a good thing. But let's see first how we can still mess up basic things. So I'll start with some of the positive things on this page. You do have a thumbnail here that displays the product. So this is a good thing, and it's also one that ideally correlates with the product variation. So if you have a variation of the product, you have the right thumbnail here. If you have multiple variations of different products, please test this on your store. It's not always that you get the right picture here, which can be quite confusing and also provide some possible friction for people. Next up, we have the product price and name here. So this is a standard layout, which is a good thing. So you have the vendor and the name here in one. You don't necessarily need to have the vendor here. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. It is a little bit of a situation-specific thing. Then you have the pricing. Now, a couple things here that they are not doing that good is that you have the shipping and taxes calculated at checkout. That is generally quite an obvious thing. Like most shoppers would expect that the shipping and taxes are added at the checkout. So there's no reason to remind them of this. It just adds noise, adds unnecessary friction, because then they are reminded of the shipping costs that they will have to go. And in the next stage on the checkout, we just want them to start filling in the field so that they can move further into the buying process. With the pricing, ideally the price also shows a compare at price if this is on a discount. So you get this confirmation that you are getting a deal here. In terms of the functionality for updating this actually seems to update 2 at a time, which is terrible. But the many Shopify stores don't have this auto-updating. So you have a lot of implementations where you can actually update this, and then you would have to click update cart somewhere, which is not the best way to do this. So you want that functionality built into this. And this one is actually a little bit clunky, because they are updating the whole page as opposed to just updating the cart item. So it creates this additional problem here, especially if you want to update it multiple times. And that's far from optimal from the usability perspective. And here also, like, removing products should be easy. If you think of a scenario where you have multiple products added to the cart, then you want the user to be able to remove the ones that they don't want easily, in order for them to then be able to proceed to checkout. Now, appearance-wise, often we see that the proceed to checkout button on top is the best functionality. Sometimes you have stores where you just don't have that much room here. Then you can also have that here on the bottom. But we find that most of the times having a proceed to checkout button on top actually wins. So this here, the continue shopping button, just provides unnecessary choice here. Normally we see that it's here on top, like with the arrow to the left, so that corresponds with the browser arrow, and the browser arrow also on mobile, that people are used to that experience. Here, trust badges can help on some scenarios, as long as like they are not just random, and they make the buyer, of course, like more motivated or more aligned with what these values are, etc. Now, a couple of things here. There's a lot of distractions on this particular footer. So there's a return policy that people can't easily see. A couple more things to say, and of course, like there's a traditional mistake that the continue shopping button is getting way more cannibalized or way too much attention in this giving out coupons. We were to analyze this page, which is doesn't make any sense. That probably is gathering also more like there's a lot of distracting links as well. So often the custom footers on the cards which simplify things are better. Also here, looks like they turned off their upsell app, which then just left out the headline here, which is also very clunky. Let's look at another store, a big store in this case, and see what we can improve on that one. So this is Gymshark, a very famous store, one of the biggest Shopify stores there is. And we can see here, for example, that they do have the automatically updated cart quantity, so it doesn't load the entire page. They are fairly easy to remove. They have a continue shopping button that is a bit more discreet than in the last examples. And here they do have a carousel that is taking on a lot of space. There's a free standard shipping when you spend more than 75 euros. Well, I already have that in my cart, so it's just say that I qualify for free shipping. And it's trying to get me to sign up to emails, which would take me to another page. It's kind of useless because I'm going to go to the checkout and fill in my email anyway. So there's nothing to win here by this messaging. And this is just adding way too much unnecessary noise and distraction for this experience, where getting me to check out for my 240 euro order would be way more valuable than showing these messages here that can be very distracting. So a lot of these messages can be customized. There's a feature in Shopify called cart.value, and from there you can edit the messaging. There's also here, there's social media icons, there's blogs and newsletters, etc. Just a lot of distraction on this page, even though it appears to be quite a simple page. So that's those two examples. Let's look into a couple of other stores and let's bring out better examples than these two. So first example is cupcoats.com. And here you can just see how simple the cart is, how few distractions there are on this view, and how you can do everything from the first view. So there's no reason to scroll around and figure things out. They have really aimed to make this as simple as possible. So just breaking out these elements, there's a couple of buttons to go back in case you end up here by accident. You have the shop all button, you have the continue shopping button here. There's a button for dealing with objections. So there's FAQs, like, okay, so if I have a shipping related objection, for example, I can go and check out there. There's got a question, you can email them. So again, amplifies trust. Then there's a easily updating quantity selector, doesn't necessarily need a button. Could load without loading the page. But all the basic elements are there. A little bit of branding here to explain the white space so it doesn't look weird. And then you have a proceed to checkout button. Unintimidating brand colors, They added a PayPal available at checkout button here as well, in case that is a friction point to some people that like they want to pay with PayPal only. A couple of other things they probably could do better. They have this email sign-up field here that we discussed earlier, and the social buttons that can get people a little bit distracted onto that world. So, pretty good example of how the above the fold, at least, can be done very well. Now, this is a very, very simple one. So let's bring up a little bit more of a complicated example, and we can then wrap this up to provide like a good 360 view of how different carts can be optimized based on the store. So let's take a look at the last example of some of the good carts that we have. Here on this store, they have the trusts as an objection buster, as got a question, call or email us. So if you have concerns, you have the details right here. And usually just having this available will help put people more at ease. One of the interesting things here that they have is a save for later functionality. So you can actually save these items for later usage. That you don't want to buy it now. You want to buy some other things. And this way you can have this sort of like go to your secondary cart. So once you click that, you can have that here below the fold on the save for later pile. Now, this is a pretty good standard cart. There's really not that much to pick apart here. It's clear, it's usable, it's credible. It gets people effectively to the next step. It helps people adjust their quantities as they wish. It even helps them to save things for later. It has the necessary information, but nothing too much. And it's just a well-functioning, nice, clean implementation. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you watched this far. You obviously do. And I'll see you on the next videos. Thank you.